So the light in my bathroom is dead. So I literally did my makeup in the dark for this video. I'm not drinking wine. It's actually a Cosmopolitan and not in a martini glass. So this video is bound to fail. Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. I am Britt, and if you haven't subscribed yet, you probably should, because I normally talk about geeky things, but sometimes I sit and tell you guys the crazy stories about my life and the reasons why I drink. So this one will be fun. I'm drinking a Cosmopolitan today out of a non-martini glass, so I'm a classy lady. So this is kind of two stories in one, because there have been people in the past who have wanted me dead. Well done, Cosmo. You did not break my light. Yes, there are two people in my life that in the past have wanted me dead, and one attempted and the other one threatened. So let's get into it. So the first story was the one who actually tried, and I don't think he tried to kill me. I really honestly don't. We actually made amends. It's my favorite part of that story. I did not make amends with the other person, and we'll get into why I made amends with the one and not the other. So the first experience I had actually was in 6th grade. I was 12 years old, and I had an interesting relationship with a friend of mine. And like always, I don't say names just because that's not a good thing to do. So we'll call this guy DVD, because I've not done that yet. I've not given really super duper fake names in my story time. So DVD and I had been best of friends since, I don't know, I think 1st grade was when he and I had become friends. And I had this really close friendship with him, this other really close friendship with somebody who is still like my brother, and then another really close friendship with a girl that I'm still very, very good friends with. Not like hangout good friends, but like I would go and hang out at the restaurant she works at all the time when she worked downtown Minneapolis. So this friendship I had with DVD was kind of an interesting one. He and I would constantly get into arguments. We were not healthy friends. But you know, when you're a kid, you don't understand what healthy friendships are. You don't understand what healthy relationships are. We never had a healthy relationship, and I think mostly because he couldn't have healthy relationships. And that's him, and I hope that he has gotten better. He has children now, so I hope he's better. He and I never became friends ever again, but we did make amends. So he and I would get into arguments, and I should honestly have known slightly better. I'm not blaming myself, the victim, but I should have known better. He had a lot of anger issues. He was relatively violent with those anger issues, and I made him angry. And he got violent, and it was legitimately one of the scariest experiences that I have ever gone through in my entire life. So basically what had happened, we were out at lunch. We were about ready to go out to the playground, because in my school at the time, 6th grade was still considered elementary, so we still had recess. And mind you, like, I think I've mentioned this many a time before, my school was K through 12 until my senior year of high school. So like, it wasn't like I ever switched schools or anything like that. So elementary, middle school, they were both very, very, the only way you could tell where you were was if you had recess or not. We were at lunch, ready to go out to recess, and DVD and I had gotten into a really nasty argument during lunch. And I don't even remember what this argument was about. We had so many arguments that I don't even remember what they were all about. And we argued so often that people were convinced we were dating. He and I never felt that way about each other. I don't think we ever would have ever felt that way about each other, but people thought we were because we argued all the time. So one day after one of these arguments at lunch, we started walking out to recess. Nikki and a few of our other friends had already left for recess. It was just me, DVD, Ryan, and then my friend Jamie. Ryan being the one that is still like my brother, and then Jamie was a friend that was kind of in and out of our friendship group a lot. She and I are still friends as well. She actually just moved back to Minnesota. I mean, not just, like, it's been a while, but she moved back to Minnesota. We've not hung out yet, which is unfortunate. And DVD and I were having a meltdown of an argument, and the other two, I'm sure, were just like, rolling their eyes, being really frustrated because this was happening all the time. But the problem was we had these mutual friends. So even on the times where we were off as friends, we were not friends, we hated each other, which was like right now, we still hung out with the same people. And so we had to like learn how to get along, but we were also 12. So like literally 12. I sometimes say 12 sarcastically because somebody is just being very immature. We were literally 12. And so it was really difficult to understand one another and understand that we just had to let this personality conflict, just let it go and just deal with the friendships that we had. And there was also this other group of people, of friends, and they were kind of our enemies. We would always fight, not like physically, but like we were always in a fight with this other group of friends. Not our friends, like this other group of people that were indeed friends. And he had some mutual friends over there. I even had some mutual friends from that group, but I did not like their leader, Nick, which is weird because I used to have when I was really young, I had a crush on him. But then when we got into high school, he offered to smoke pot with me many a time. I always said no because I was a goody two shoes in high school, but yeah, he offered to smoke pot with me many a time. So apparently we became friends at some point. I didn't get that memo. But no, so we were really against this other group and I really hated him. I think mostly because he just didn't like me when I liked him, and I think that was mostly the problem. We got into this big argument and DVD goes, fine, maybe I'll just go and join Nick's group then. And that was one of the biggest threats you could make to me in that time frame. You know, and I was so fed up with him that I was not going to fight for his friendship anymore. And so I said, fine, but I don't think they allow clowns from the circus. I remember those two sentences being said. I'm going to go join Nick's group. I don't think they allow clowns from the circus. I was great at insults back then. So DVD turns around in this hallway. I could, if I walked through the hallways of Pequot Lake School, I would be able to show you exactly where it happened because I remember vividly, basically from the I'm just going to join Nick's group to the event to getting out into the playground and telling our other friends what had happened inside. And I remember it vividly, and I relive it sometimes in my dreams, and it's really weird, and I don't think I ever truly got over it. And I know I didn't, because throughout all of high school I had trouble with necklaces. I had trouble with anything around my neck. I still will pull necklines away from my neck. DVD decided to turn around, push me against the wall, and choked me. And it felt like forever. It probably only lasted maybe a couple of seconds. I think the principal even proved that to me. We're getting to the principal. But yeah, so he had his hands around my neck. I couldn't breathe. I was freaking out. I was trying to scream, but I couldn't because you can't get noise out when you have no airway. And it was like a nightmare. It was the worst experience that I had experienced at this point in my life. I heard Ryan and Jamie screaming, trying to pull him off of me, screaming, let her go, let her go, let her go. And then all of a sudden a door opened up and he let go. And I fell to the ground, holding my neck, just gasping for breath. And it was one of the teacher aides that I have known like throughout my entire time at Pequot. And she walked out and she goes, what is going on here? And I couldn't speak. DVD was still just pissed as hell and breathing really heavy himself. He was red in the face. And that was when Jamie turns to her and says, he just choked her. So she let the three of us go out to recess and DVD had to stay behind. And he went to go talk to the principal. So then I went out to recess and told our other friends what had happened. And they were just kind of like, what? Because, I mean, this was a big deal. I mean, yes, this guy had always been somewhat aggressive and somewhat violent, but it had never escalated to this point. And like I said, I should have known better. I knew he was aggressive. I knew he was violent, and I shouldn't have called him a clown from the circus. I'm not laughing at what he got angry at. I'm laughing at my inability to be mean. It's still accurate to this day. So then after recess, I get called to the principal's office to go and chat about what had occurred, what had happened. DVD claimed it never occurred. The teacher's aide was like, I know something was happening because people were screaming outside the teacher's lounge. Oh yeah, this happened right outside the teacher's lounge at the time. It's not the teacher's lounge anymore. I was saying it was happening. The teacher's aide was saying something happened. Both Ryan and Jamie said, yes, it happened. And DVD was like, it didn't happen. And so then the principal asked me, how long was his hands around your neck? Even back then I understood how horrible of a question that is. That's like asking a rape victim, what were you wearing that night? Like, why is that a question? His hands were around my neck. And he goes, how long were they around? And I was like, I don't know, like 10 seconds or something like that. Because it felt like forever. I wasn't like timing it as his hands were around my neck. He goes, all right, cool. So I'm going to take my watch and I'm going to say go. And then you're going to tell me when he let go. Go. I kid you not. This principal timed the time his hands were around my neck. What? Oh my gosh, this principal was the worst. It became clear as I talked this story out with people, the people that were involved with the story, it became very clear that he was just sexist, because I've learned other things about him since then, and I just learned that he is actually incredibly sexist. I eventually said, okay, now. And I remember DVD just like flailing his arms, though, you know, from every millisecond that went by. He goes, that was like 3 seconds, not 10. His hands were around my neck at all. Now, mind you, this was before danger ever existed in school, because guess what happened 2 weeks later? The school shooting at Columbine. 2 weeks later. And that actually scared me even more, just because I ended up, when the news stuff was going on, I kind of relived what happened to me. And I know it was completely different, and I know I'm fine. You know, but I was scarred for a very long time. And like I said, I still don't think I'm completely over it, because it's still something that I relive in my dreams every once in a while. And it was one of the scariest times of my life. And I had vowed to never speak to him ever again. It ended up happening because, again, we had mutual friends. And his other friends, you know, while there was a little bit of frustration for a little while, it eventually faded. And they were all like, because I don't think he meant to try and hurt me. I think that his anger just kind of took over, and that was really all that it boiled down to. His anger took over, his aggression happened, and I don't think he meant honestly any of it, but it was still a terrible experience for me, and it's still something, like I said, something that I still live with to this day, and it's awful to live with it. He and I ended up reconciling in 9th grade. Again, we were never friends ever again, but like we chatted, we talked, we hung out every once in a while, but we weren't friends. And he's not something that I'd ever choose to be friends with ever again. He and I were friends on Facebook for a little while until he got rid of his Facebook. He and I mended some of those wounds, but not enough to ever become friends ever again. Because I mean, I hurt him too. And again, I'm not trying to blame myself. I know I am not to blame for somebody putting their hands around my neck. But at the same time, I still insulted him as well, and I have to take some ownership of that, escalating to that point. There is ownership to be had. Anyway, next story. The next story happened the very next year. I was in middle school, or middle level. We didn't have a middle level principal, so we had the assistant principal, when then the principal of the high school took care of the high school, the assistant principal took care of the middle school, and then, because again, we were K through 12 until my senior year of high school. We eventually got a middle school principal, which I've talked about in another story time. His first year, which was the following year, was my 8th grade year. I have hair around my nose. Anyway, can't handle it. So this one was a very different situation, because this is somebody that was always very abusive towards me. I was very badly bullied when I was in school, and to the point that like a lot of my depression and a lot of my anxiety comes from fearing those people. I don't know if there is such a thing as a phobia of your classmates, but I have a phobia of my classmates. I'm actually afraid of things that I post on Facebook because I'm friends with some of them on Facebook, and it is really terrifying. But anyway, this guy was one of my biggest bullies throughout all of school. He got expelled for this situation, and he needed to get expelled, so there's that. We will call him Blu-ray. My DVD collection is right in front of me. So Blu-ray and I, we never got along. We were never friends. Matter of fact, there were teachers that tried to get the administration to switch us to different classes because we just couldn't handle it. There were, seriously, the principal was trying really hard to figure out a way that we would never be in class together, but that happened in social studies in 7th grade. A year later, than when DVD hurt me. When we were in classes together, because sometimes it was unavoidable, when we were in classes together, which happened actually a lot in 7th grade because I don't think the principal and the assistant principal understood the extreme that our hatred for each other happened. Like, seriously, I am no longer affected by fat jokes because I have heard all of them from him. There was one time where he was chatting with one of my other big bullies, and they were laughing and they were pointing at a table and they were saying my name, and I was like, what are you guys talking about? And they go, we're just trying to see if you sat on that table, if you would break it. And I said, that table could hold like 5,000 pounds. And they go, exactly. There is one song that I'm actually triggered that triggers my anxiety because he used it as a fat joke. So when we were in classes together, teachers rarely put us together into groups because they all understood we could not work together. There was one teacher, our social studies teacher, bless his heart, who felt like personality conflicts needed to be addressed. And so the way he felt like addressing that was putting us into a group together in an art project, where I'm a very artsy person and I'm a very deep person. Like, I've always been a very deep thinker. I've always been a very, like, just heavy person. I mean, physically and heavy as in the term, like, heavy. What is a good example? Like, extreme, like deep, you know, that kind of thing. Oh boy. My battery's about to die, so we're gonna take a short recess. I'm gonna save the rest of this for that story. So I'm all charged and I refilled my glass. So there you go. So this teacher decided that he was gonna put us into the same group with this very artsy-fartsy project where I could be an artsy-fartsy person. And needless to say, that was a mistake. So this group project, I don't remember the specifics of it, but it was like different pieces of like the social construct, essentially. And our word that we had to create a collage for, so they were collages, and the word that we had to create the collage for was family. So we were digging through catalogs and magazines and things like that to find photos that would show family. And being the artsy-fartsy heavy person that I am, I found a photo of a woman breastfeeding her baby in a National Geographic. And I thought, what a perfect way to showcase family than a woman breastfeeding her child. So I showed it to the other people in my group and they were all kind of like, oh. Because, you know, breastfeeding hasn't been normalized even to this day. So please, normalize breastfeeding. This is coming from somebody who has no intention of ever having a child. So after I had gone through that whole magazine and cut out some pictures, whatever, I put it to the side. Blu-ray decides to grab this particular magazine, and he goes back to this photo of the woman breastfeeding her baby and takes a pair of scissors and starts stabbing it. And his words out of his mouth were, "Die, Brittany Hallis, die." And then he proceeded to find another picture of a woman where he then stabbed that picture and said, "Die, Brittany Hallis, die." And continued to do this until I had a meltdown. And of course, the teacher was not in the room at the time. He had actually left the room for a little bit. The teacher's aide, actually the same teacher's aide that came out of the teacher's lounge when I was being choked by DVD, was the one in the room. And she came over to me and she said, "What's going on?" And she's known, and all these teachers knew, that I was heavily bullied and that I tended to have meltdowns in the middle of class because I was horrifyingly bullied all the time. I was panicking, legitimate panic attack. It was my first ever panic attack. And I couldn't get words out. I couldn't breathe very well. I was just having some trouble. And so the teacher finally came back. She brought me over to the teacher and he was trying to ask me what was going on. And all I said was, "I think he wants to kill me." This sparked red flags, obviously, in the teacher. And so he brought me immediately to the assistant principal to chat. And by the time I got there, I'd calmed down enough to the point that I could at least speak. I'm still crying, still sobbing, still terrified, and explaining everything that's going on. Now, mind you, the year before this, somebody actually put their hands around my neck. 2 weeks later, Columbine happened, and now I am having my biggest bully threaten my life. I was terrified that this was actually going to happen, that I was actually going to die this time. It wasn't good. It wasn't good at all. It was really bad. And this is another thing I've never really truly gotten over, and this became clear a few years later. So the assistant principal took action immediately. He was suspended. He had 3 days out of school suspension and then 2 days in school suspension. So he was gone for a week. He was told to leave me alone. When he came back, we had the same gym class because everybody had the same. It was interesting the way that they did gym. I mean, we talked a little bit about the whole gym situation in another video. The way they did gym was very, very interesting. They grouped it off, and it was done by homeroom, and our two homeroom teachers were kind of part of that same group. So we had gym together, and we were heading back to the locker rooms, and we were walking by the guys' locker room, and he was about to walk in when all of a sudden he gives me a punch right in the gut. And now, mind you, it wasn't like a straight on, like, should I get karate technical? Should I get martial arts technical? It was not a reverse punch. It was like kind of like a backhand, but it wasn't like good proper form. But it hurt. It made me nauseous. And so I got changed, went and sat down, and just tried really hard to not feel incredibly nauseous. So it was also the end of the day. Gym was the last thing we had that day. And I went and got into the car where my dad was. And he was asking me why I was holding my stomach. And I said, "Remember that guy from a week ago, or a couple weeks ago, that threatened to kill me?" He goes, "Yeah, you mean Blu-ray?" And I said, "Yes, he hit me today." Dad went and parked his car, ran right in to talk to the assistant principal, and said, "What is happening?" And so some investigation was going on into this whole situation when my aunt called. Now, I think I've mentioned before the fact that my grandmother, I graduated from the same high school that all of my aunts, including the one that was married into my family, and my uncle, all graduated from. Everybody knew my grandma on my mom's side. Everybody knew my grandma, and you didn't want my grandma on your bad side. And that carried over into some of her children. Now, we kept this for a long time from my grandma because we didn't want her to find out that this was a problem. Somehow my aunt found out. So she handled it. And she got him expelled. So the rest of the story is essentially how I got to learn how expulsion works. And I'm sure I'm going to surprise the heck out of you. And it might be a Minnesota State thing specifically, but expulsion doesn't mean forever. So I was free from Blu-ray from 7th grade for a very long time. Enter senior year of high school. I get to my locker. I'm excited because the elementary kids are no longer in our school. Not that that was actually a thing I was thinking about, but I mean, it was the 1 year that I got to experience not being in K-12 school in my entire life. Nikki and Shayna come up to my locker. Nikki's kind of worried, got this worried look on her face. Shayna has no idea what had happened before. This was before Shayna joined our group. This was before Shayna even came to our school. She came the next year. So she has really no idea. And this was something that my friend group kind of stayed away from talking about because it triggered me every single time. Like, I would have a panic attack whenever somebody would bring this story up. Nikki needed to. Nikki turns me around and she goes, Britt, there's something I need to tell you right now. And I was concerned because she was legitimately like upset, and Nikki's not somebody who ever gets upset. She's very type B personality. She kind of brushes things off. She never really gets super upset. She does in her own way, but like with me, she never really did. She was always very like middle ground. She didn't have to say a word. Behind her walked Blu-ray. I fell to the ground having a panic attack, just terrified for my life. And Nikki said, I was trying to tell you before you actually saw what happened. I wanted to tell you before you saw him yourself. I went through the whole day just kind of begging off a panic attack. I got home and I opened the door to my house and I called out for my mom who was home. And I said, Mom, you're never going to guess who's back. I didn't have to say a word. She was immediately on the phone with the principal from the high school saying, what the hell is actually happening in your school? He was expelled. And this was when the principal explained to us how expulsion works. At least in the state of Minnesota, you were only expelled for one full school year. And because there was only one school in that general vicinity, within a 25-mile radius, there was no other option for him to go to school at. So he was allowed back to Pequot Lakes High School. There were some stipulations. He was actually held back a year so that we wouldn't graduate together. He was told not to speak to me. I was also told not to speak to him. I still think this was handled very poorly. I think, honestly, before any of this happened, the principal should have called my family and pulled us into a room together and explained to us what was going to happen this following year. I should not have found out the way that I did. The way that I found out was absolutely asinine. I still think that this was a problem. But at the same time, like, I was told I couldn't talk to him. He was told he couldn't talk to me. There was this whole thing about it. We were not going to have any of the same classes together. Like, they were being very specific that he and I would never be together. There was one time we did have an interaction. I was carrying a bunch of stuff in and I kept dropping my purse as I was trying to get in to the door, and he opened the door for me and I simply just said thank you, and he did not respond. He stayed silent. That was my only real interaction with him, was he opened the door for me. I said thank you just out of my own kindness, and he did not respond. And I sometimes wonder how he's doing these days. Not that I would ever want to be friends with him because we were never friends to begin with. Hi, Zordon. So, like, there would be no reason for the two of us to ever, like, talk or be friends. But at the same time, like, I sometimes wonder how he's doing, and I hope he's better. I legitimately do. Like, I have such a kind heart. Even my biggest bully, I'm like, I hope he's doing well. I hope he's happy. I hope he's living the best life he possibly can. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's one of the reasons why I drink, or two of the reasons why I drink. Because people legitimately wanted to kill me once in my life, twice in my life, and it's a really rough feeling to have people legitimately want to kill you. Even if it's just out of anger, you know, second-degree murder, or like in the case of Blu-ray, who just thought it would be funny to threaten my life. Anyway, that's the reason, those are some of the reasons why I drink. If you guys want to hear some more wine story times, let me know in the comments below. I promise I'll start drinking wine again. Let me know in the comments below. I've got some other ones coming down the pipeline, and I'm very excited to tell these stories. Yeah. So I'll see you guys all next time. There's vodka in this, so I'm feeling pretty good right about it. I'll see you guys all next week. Bye. Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. I am Britt, and if you haven't subscribed yet, you probably should, because I usually talk about geeky things. But sometimes I tell you guys Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. I am Britt, and if you haven't subscribed yet, you probably should, because I normally talk about geeky things, but sometimes I tell you guys the Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. I am Britt, and if you